the mountains to the sea. By the forests and the ferns, there's no place we'd rather be. This is our heartland, forever Queensland, Seven's great southeast.
Tonight, Pauline Hanson locked out of her new Gold Coast office by the owners. Fierce fires badly injure a young boy and destroy the possessions of 2 families. Drama in Sydney as lions turn on their tamer. And the Wallabies beat the House of Pain Hoodoo to retain the Bledisloe Cup.
Sensational!
From the studios of Channel 7 Brisbane, this is 7 News with Tracey Challenor.
Good evening. Pauline Hanson is embroiled in another public battle, this time locked out of the Surfers Paradise office where she'd planned to move her party's headquarters. She claims the Japanese owners of the building reneged on a lease agreement.
Pauline Hanson knew her impending move to Surfers Paradise had drawn criticism from local tourism leaders, but it's today's lockout that's really rattled her chain. She claims she signed a 5-month lease.
That's un-Australian. You know, it shouldn't be happening.
She'd already started moving in after handing over up to $10,000 to the building's Japanese owners. She claims she was notified last night they wanted to renege on the deal. Today she arrived to find she'd been locked out.
Is this again politically driven, or is it just a Japanese company firm saying, well, we've changed our minds?
Local businesses don't seem to mind the prospect of having the high-profile Polly as their new neighbour.
I think, she's not really racist or something like that. So, that's what she thinks, and I'm not really sure about those type of things. So, I just don't care about that.
I wish you luck.
Thank you very much.
The One Nation leader has a strong following on the Gold Coast. She was treated more like a rock princess during a whirlwind visit earlier this year. Pauline says she's already sought legal advice, but doesn't know if she could cope with yet another court battle.
I feel as if I'm continually in battles all the time. We've got an election only a few months away. I was looking forward to it. What are my 2 options?
On the Gold Coast, Angela Cox, 7 News.
And the Japanese company contacted 7 News a moment ago to say while Pauline had signed a lease, they'd realised they had other plans for the shopfront to become a restaurant. 3 homes are in ruins today after a series of house fires across Queensland's southeast. In the worst incident, a 4-year-old boy suffered severe burns when the family home was engulfed by flames early this morning.
20 minutes after the fire broke out, smoke was still pouring from the 2-storey weatherboard home.
The interior of the house was well alight, including up in the ceiling area.
It's thought the fire started in a 4-year-old's bedroom just after 6 a.m. He was rushed to hospital with serious burns.
They did receive burns to the face, hands and back.
An older teenage brother suffered minor burns. The parents and 3 other children were unhurt. At this stage, it's not known what started the fire. Meanwhile, an overnight fire which destroyed a house at Gowrie Mountain west of Toowoomba has been blamed on cooking oil. The tenant, Narelle Shepherd, has told firefighters the oil caught alight on the stove. She took the blazing pot out of the house, but later found the kitchen walls on fire.
And I woke up my daughter and I told her to get out of the house. And I got her out and it just went.
She then ventured a second time into the building to rescue her pet dog. Although the house was rented, Narelle and her 16-year-old daughter Leah have lost all their possessions. More heartbreak for an elderly farming couple at Pilton, south of Toowoomba today, where their farmhouse was destroyed by fire. Dairy farmer Ted Brown was tending to a cow and calf in a front paddock when he saw smoke coming from the homestead he grew up in.
Tried to open the door and the handle came off and we used a fire extinguisher and it ran out pretty fast.
The house was insured, but Mr. Brown says nothing can replace his father's war medals lost in the blaze. It's thought an electrical fault may have sparked the fire. Tom Hilston, 7 News.
Terrified Sydney circus goers fled the Big Top this afternoon after 2 lions pounced on the ringmaster. Hundreds watched in horror as the animals attacked during the performance at Penrith.
The lions just jumped on his back and then started mauling into him.
Circus staffers used fire hoses to control the lions as ambulance officers helped the 40-year-old tamer. He's now recovering in hospital from severe shock, cuts and puncture wounds. Emergency crews are still at the scene of an accident on the Mount Lindsay Highway in which a motorist has been incinerated. Meantime, a motorcyclist is lucky to be alive after his bike skidded off the Bruce Highway, plunging him headfirst into knee-deep water. Passing motorists say they saw dirt and water spray 20 metres into the air and they raced to save the man. The impact broke the bike in two. The Energex rescue chopper airlifted the man to Nambour Hospital. It's believed he may have a broken back and leg. Frustrated police and SES volunteers have called off the hunt for the body of a man believed to have been murdered, then dumped in mudflats at Wellington Point. The search for missing New Farm man Peter Dawn concentrated on the mouth of the Mugurapum Creek, where his wallet and other items were found by crab fishermen. Mr. Dawn disappeared last December. A man was charged with his murder. Police want to hear from anyone who saw unusual activity around the creek at about that time. Another search of the area is planned later next week. Banned bookmaker Robbie Waterhouse has returned to the racetrack, assuring his marriage to Sydney's leading trainer Gai Waterhouse won't be a conflict of interest. It's been 17 years since the bookie was stripped of his licence for his involvement in the fine cotton ring-in scandal. He returned to Rose Hill in Sydney today after the New South Wales Thoroughbred Racing Board granted him a licence earlier this week. Well, the man from Snowy River last night managed to round up not just the colt from Old Regret, but thousands of cheering fans at the debut Ekka performance of Banjo Patterson's classic.
After the Governor officially opened the Ekka, the lights dimmed. The colt from Old Regret was about to get away.
Easy, easy. Oh!
The best riders gathered for the hunt.
No use to try for fancy riding now. And Clancy, you must wheel them. Try and wheel them to the right.
But only one could single-handedly turn them around.
He sent the Flintstones flying, but the pony kept his feet. He cleared the fallen timber in his stride. And the man from Snowy River never shifted in his seat. It was grand to see that mountain horseman ride.
There are no actors in the show, which plays every night at the Ekka. They're all real stockmen, and the horses play their part to perfection.
Till they halted, cowed and beaten.
When the horse escaped and he knew exactly where to go, it was very well rehearsed.
A good interpretation of the poem.
You felt like you were going along with the poem. It was really amazing. It was so nice to see like the country people and the city people all coming together. It was really nice, yeah, very enjoyable.
The Aussie culture continued with John Williamson playing by the campfire.
Rounding up the keeping them in line, I'm just a dog.
Peter Doherty, 7 News.
More to come in 7 News after the break, including the Army and the centenary of Federation honoured in spectacular fashion in Townsville. You're watching 7 News. Police on the Sunshine Coast are investigating a serious assault. An elderly Sunshine Coast man is recovering in Nambour Hospital after being attacked by his knife-wielding wife. Overseas, mourners have gathered in Israel for the funerals of those killed in the Jerusalem restaurant bombing. 16 people, including Melbourne-born teenager Malky Roth, died when a Palestinian suicide bomber walked into the popular diner and detonated a nail bomb. During the funeral service, the American ambassador was heckled by an angry Israeli who accused the US of supporting terrorism. The centenary of our nation and the Army have been celebrated with the spectacular Federation North Military Tattoo in Townsville. Prime Minister John Howard was guest of honour.
It was a spectacular showpiece, with 800 participants performing before a full house at the Townsville Entertainment Centre. In a moving tribute marking the centenary of our army, uniforms from past campaigns mixed with the veterans, including Townsville's own Vietnam War Victoria Cross winner, Keith Payne.
And to reflect on the enormous debt that all Australians of successive generations owe to the men and women of the Australian Army.
In Townsville, Murray McCloskey, 7 News.
There'll be some chilly heads tonight after emergency workers went for the chop for the kids at the Royal Children's Hospital. Some of the young patients helped out, while others got a close-up view of some daring abseilers. Bluey Day is an annual fundraiser by emergency services. The city firefighters and the rural brigades challenged each other to a tug-of-war, and the rural boys won. And it was the third day of the annual Forex Variety Bash, and competitors are currently preparing for another cold night in northern New South Wales. Justin Vivers is there. And Justin, what's the latest?
Tracey, the day started in Tenterfield, a very cold Tenterfield, I might say. -6 degrees, the locals say, but it was all worthwhile. We had some fantastic driving today through National Park country, a touch over 300 kilometres. We stopped in at Emmaville, a one-horse town until the bashers arrived, went on to Inverell, and then tonight it's Delungra. On the road between Inverell and Warrialda, home to around about 300 or 400 people. So we've actually probably doubled the population tonight. It's going to be an awful lot of fun. We're on our way back to Queensland, which is really good news. We're in Gundawindi tomorrow night. I hope you can come and see us.
Thanks, Justin. And now it's time to check on sport with Victoria.
Thank you, Tracey. After the break, another triumph as the Wallabies retain the Bledisloe Cup. Rafter and Hewitt set for a showdown. Our cricketers robbed, and a surprise comeback for the battling Broncos. Another first for John Eales' men. The All Blacks no longer invincible at the House of Pain as the Wallabies became the first international side to win at Carisbrook. A second-half penalty try sealed the historic 23-15 victory, ensuring the Bledisloe Cup remains in Australia.
The Wallabies knew they were on foreign soil. The rendition of their anthem, far from impressive. But the All Black start was. Australia put on the back foot in the second minute by big Jonah Lomu in his 50th test.
Great start, New Zealand!
Australia's reply in the 17th minute was emphatic, and Matthew Burke was brilliant to level it up.
It's a try!
Burke punished the Kiwis again with the penalty. Australia led 10-5 at the break.
Never looked like missing.
Tony Brown on his home pitch reduced that gap to 2, 10 minutes into the second half.
Essie just snuck it over.
Australia led 13-8 with 17 to go. Then a desperate Ron Cribb created the cardinal sin for the All Blacks.
Tackle without the ball. It's a penalty try.
And the Wallaby supporters were celebrating in the stands. Was the Carisbrook hoodoo about to be broken?
A brave ground for Steve Lander to give a penalty try, but it was fully deserving.
Man of the match Burke was composed, setting up a match-winning lead.
15-point lead for the Wallabies.
Then big John Olomu sparked the final excitement for the All Blacks, but it was too little, too late.
Consolation for New Zealand, and that is full time.
And so another chapter in the amazing rugby story of John Eales continues. His first appearance at Carisbrook, and the hoodoo's been broken. The Bledisloe Cup retained.
It didn't have a lot to do with me. It was a great effort from the team, especially to come back after that early try and to extinguish that hoodoo. Sensational. Like, it's great. We wanted to win the Bledisloe Cup today, drink from it tonight, and move on next week.
In Dunedin, David Fordham, 7 News.
Finally, some good news for the Broncos. Match-winning halfback Sean Berrigan is back and will start against the Dragons tomorrow.
It's been almost 4 months since Berrigan shattered his shoulder. At the time, he was the form halfback of the comp. Brisbane were top of the ladder and a maroon jersey was all but his. How times change. Now, more than ever, Brisbane need a leader in the halves.
He's been missed probably because of just the way he plays and his bit of leadership around the park.
Well, he's a super fit guy. I mean, he's one of the fittest players here. He with tremendous work ethic with his training.
And that's why the comeback kid's penciled in to play the full 80 minutes, alongside Kevy Walters at 5'8", Harrison at lock, all of them fresh after half a week off.
Able to get away from football. I mean, they've been just living it, eating it and sleeping it. And it's made them brain dead.
For me, you know, at the end of the 3 days, you know, I was really keen to get back into football. I felt really good, and I think that was the case for the majority of the boys.
We just need to build up some momentum and and you know, get back to doing the things that we do well here, and the rest will look after itself, and it's as simple as that.
Last night, a thriller in the showdown at the showground. A sellout crowd witnessed the top two sides in the premiership in a possible grand final preview. A runaway Nathan Hindmarsh saw Parramatta with the early advantage over the Bulldogs.
He's going to make it!
The home side got on the board before the break, but the boot of Jason Taylor gave the Eels a 10-6 lead. It was soon overhauled by an astonishing four-pointer who'd want to be a video ref.
I'll tell you, on that angle, I'd give it a try.
The lead swapped 4 times in the second half. The Doggies held it with 15 to go.
Martini!
10 minutes later, the Eels had crossed twice. It was 3 tries apiece. Taylor's boot the difference in the 24-16 win. Ben Davis, 7 News.
And in the game in progress across the Tasman, the Warriors are making up for their rugby cousins, surprise leaders over the Sharks nearing half-time. Well, St Kilda almost did the Lions a big favour this afternoon, giving Port a scare at Colonial Stadium. The lowly Saints got to within 2 points before the South Australians kicked away, while overnight the Kangaroos accounted for Geelong.
The Saints were inaccurate early, but nevertheless well on top. But it seemed as though being in front only confused them. The power eventually taking control. A little bit of brilliance from Brett Moyle and atonement from Max Hudson kept the Saints in touch, but the polished power pounced on every error. Down 31 points at three-quarter time, St Kilda surged to within 2 points. Port holding on for their first ever win at Colonial Stadium. Last night, the Kangaroos bounced back from last week's embarrassing defeat to easily account for Geelong. After an even start, the Roos piled on 8 goals in a row to lead by 43 points at half-time. Brent Harvey continued his outstanding season, and their midfield answered every Geelong challenge, even happy to accept gifts.
Oh, look out, look out.
A 49-point victory keeping the Kangaroos' finals chances alive. Matthew Campbell, 7 News.
A sporting declaration and 2 quick-fire centuries have helped Australia to an unlikely 8-wicket victory in the tour match against Sussex. Ponting and Gilchrist both starred with the bat, but celebrations were tempered by an overnight robbery.
The overnight raid on the Aussie dressing rooms netted thieves more than $3,000 worth of equipment and signed memorabilia. Sussex police are investigating. Still, Gilchrist was in benevolent mood, conspiring to produce a result. He gave Sussex another bat, supposedly to chase quick runs. Instead, they lost quick wickets when they declared Australia needed 337 from 68 overs. Langer opened but looked a tortured soul, fighting for his immediate career. He wasn't allowed fight for long. Sent packing for 14, his departure was like a funeral march. Langer's problems highlighted further by the ease with which Gilchrist and Ponting dismantled the Sussex attack without their favourite bats. Ponting, another player under fire, brushed self-doubt aside with a cavalier century.
Things have gone a bit sour over the last few weeks, and it was nice to get some time in the middle today and start hitting the ball in the middle of the bat again and start moving my feet the way they should move again.
The skipper's ton was also a classic, coming in just over 2 hours, including 78 in boundaries. He went for 114, stumped by Wilton, the partnership yielding 151. Carthew arrived, the soon-to-be anointed Test batsman, helping set up victory with 5 overs to spare. The only downsides, the robbery and the loss of Ashley Nofke, who's going home to continue treatment on his damaged ankle. In Brighton, Pat Welch, 7 News.
Pat Rafter and Leighton Hewitt are set to go head-to-head for just the 3rd time in their careers. Both survived gruelling quarter-final clashes at the Cincinnati Masters to set up an All-Australian semi-final. Rafter is through to the semis in Cincinnati for the 3rd time in 4 years, but getting there was no easy task. A stubborn Greg Rosetsky stood in his way. He saved 14 break points in the 3rd before stumbling. Rafter closed out the match with an ace and the pair left the court to a standing ovation. Between them, the Aussies were on court for almost 6 hours. Hewitt took 2 hours, 52 minutes to overcome Croatian youngster Ivan Ljubicic in 3. Meantime, Australia had another athlete accepting gold at the World Athletics Championships in Edmonton. Wheelchair racer Louise Savage crossing first in the 800 metres exhibition race. 21-year-old Craig Mottram failed to progress to the final of the 1500. His semi comfortably won by Moroccan great and defending champ Hicham El Garouge. Likewise for Tamsin Lewis in the 800. She finished 7th in her semi-final. And Marion Jones recovered from the disappointment of losing her 100 crown with an impressive victory in the 200 ahead of Bahamian Debbie Ferguson. And Tracey, that is it from our Globetrotting Sports Department.
Thank you, Victoria. Stay with us, the weather's next, and brownies along with Weekend Coastwatch. To the weather now, and it was a warm winter's day, perfect for a visit to the Ekka. Brisbane's top temperature reached a warm 22 degrees. Amberley recorded the coldest temperature, a cool 3 degrees there. To the satellite picture, and we can see Queensland remained cloud-free today. The only movement we can see is the cloud moving from Western Australia to Victoria, and that's caused by a middle-level trough. On today's chart, you can see the slow-moving high centred over New South Wales, maintaining the ridge over the east coast. The high also responsible for the dry, fine weather and light winds over inland Queensland and those cool nights in the southeast. Tomorrow we can expect much of the same, with the high moving only slightly southeast and into the Tasman, the stable conditions bringing more fine weather. Around the nation, most capitals can expect fine conditions, the possibility of showers in Hobart and Adelaide. Canberra residents will have to turn up their heaters, a minimum of 0 degrees forecast. In Queensland, we can expect mostly fine weather. Only Hervey Bay and Bundaberg will experience some drizzle. The chance of an early shower for Rockhampton. For the southeast corner, the Bureau says it will be cool tonight and fine weather tomorrow, with only light winds and northeasterly sea breezes in the afternoon. Looking ahead, it appears the fine weather will be with us for the remainder of the exhibition. And to Coastwatch now, and Brownie, lately it's felt more like spring than winter.
Yes, Tracey, the good weather continues, and tomorrow looks like being a corker of a day. The Bureau of Meteorology's forecast for tomorrow for Double Island Point to Coolangatta and Moreton Bay is for a fine day, with light southwest winds in the morning becoming southeast during the day and 10 to 15 knots northeast inshore in the afternoon. Based on that forecast, seas should be almost flat in the morning in offshore and open bay waters, possibly rising to 1 metre in the afternoon if the northeast sea breeze fills in as predicted. In the more sheltered waters in Pumicestone Passage, southern Moreton Bay and Southport Broadwater, they should be flat in the morning, possibly rising to 0.5 metre in the afternoon. Tides at the mouth of the Brisbane River tomorrow are 1.8 metre highs at 2 a.m. and 2 p.m, lows are 0.5 of a metre at 8:30 a.m. and 0.8 of a metre at 9 p.m. The surf's almost flat and there's no sign of a swell increase. Now, about the only chance you've got of getting a wave tomorrow would be look for beach breaks on the making tide along the open beaches. There's today's dive viz reports, pretty good all round, and with similar weather and sea conditions expected tomorrow, they should be much the same. On the fishing front, the great weather has been good for heading offshore and there's been a few snapper caught. Ray Polworth got this one on Murphy's Reef off Mooloolaba last night. 11-year-old Jared Rogers took the day off school yesterday to go fishing off Curramundi with his dad Gary and nailed this 27.7 kilo cobia. They pull your arms off those things, that's a top catch for a young angler. In the rivers and estuaries, there's been bream and whiting caught, and over the next month or two, as the weather warms up, there'll be more flathead about. There's been a stack of tailor caught along the beaches, particularly on the Golden Tweed coasts. When they're schooled up and on the chew, they're easy to catch. Now, tailor are good eating if they're bled as soon as they're caught and put on ice as soon as possible. If not, the flesh goes mushy and they're ruined. They don't freeze well, so just take what you need for a feed and think about leaving them biting, because to catch too many is a waste. There's detailed fishing information from Hervey Bay to Evans Head on the Coastwatch page in tomorrow's Sunday Mail. Coastwatch reports tomorrow morning on 4KQ, and all the good coastal info on the website browniescoastwatch.com. Have a good day tomorrow.
Good tips, thanks Brownie. And that's all for now. But coming up next in World Around Us, Frank looks at the history and colour of the Ekka. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6. Until then, thanks for your company. Good night.